Um, so I found this question to be very interesting, and as soon as I got it, I didn't know if I wanted to talk about this, and also just like how much I was willing to really like dive into this topic, because I think it is one that is sort of like touchy to me, or one that I think means a lot to me, and that I've grown to like understand that like friendship just is a theme that plays out in a very particular way in my life, but it's one that I still carry with like a lot more, I think, I don't know, significance than I think I have before. And this is coming from someone who is, again, like, I'm only 22 years old. And that's not to say that, like, I'm not the best at it, but I've definitely unconsciously or without, I think, proper, I think, awareness of things gone about friendship in certain ways, or have allowed my friendships to go about certain ways without me understanding that actually this is how I want to go about my friendships. I don't know. Yeah, some of the tendencies I'm going to talk about, or some of the patterns that I want to talk about, are from the age of 16, because I think I can only recall enough of, I think, how friendships have played out for me from that age. I think from the time I was like 16, or I think let's say like even before then, because I remember having a very significant friendship in grade 10, and in grade 10 I was like 15, and I made friends with like this amazing person. She was very like adamant of like, you know, we're both new in the school, like let's be friends. And it was honestly just like such a beautiful experience, because I didn't expect to make friends going into this new school. I had tried making friends before, but it was just established for me that like making friends is like not easy for me. And it is very random and not necessarily something that I plan for, or that I can seek out for to make really close friendships. They just like happen to me. And sometimes I'm in situations or in periods where they just don't exist, or they just don't happen. Yeah. But I came into grade 10 and I made this really close friend, and it was my first like real through and through like best friend relationship. And yeah, she ended up leaving. She ended up going to another school, and it was honestly so sad. Like, I was extremely sad when she left. Like, I didn't know what to do with myself afterwards, because I wouldn't have thought that she would go to another school, number one. But then even after I think I had heard the news, I didn't know how to comprehend what that was gonna mean for me. But I had a feeling that that probably meant that I was just gonna like solo dolo like the rest of like my high school career. And I sort of did for like a bit, for like a while afterwards. Like, I really did like, I think, just accept, I think, the isolation that came with, I think, just not having her around. And it was tough for me, because it's hard not to, you know, just feel incredibly like lonely, you know. But I have this thing within me that is just not capable of, I think, really, I don't want to say seeking out friendship, but like, I didn't want to have to like, you know, cling onto another group of people, or to people that seemed as if I would be friends with just because this other person is gone. I think I was so, I believed in friendship, and you know, the power and like the significance in friendship from being friends with her, that I didn't want anything that was not going to be genuine anymore, you know. But I also didn't really, I can't say that I knew what friendship really meant to me, or what I wanted from friendships. I just knew that she was a good friend to me, and we had a very good friendship dynamic between each other. Yeah. So I sort of like did my thing by myself. Like I would just like I took on like other responsibilities just so that I don't feel like as lonely. I remember I was like, working in the library during breaks because I didn't want to have to like feel the loneliness that came with her just like not being around. Sorry, I'm like checking my mic to see if it's still on, if it's still like recording and stuff. Yeah, and it was just like hard. And then that same year in grade 11, it was 2020, so like COVID hit. So I think just that sort of phase didn't really like last very long because literally in March, I think that's when lockdown started and like school stopped and then we were at home. And I think my familial relationships started to strengthen a lot and they carried me through COVID, that I realized that there's just so much peace and like friendship that I already have with so many people like within like my family, to the point where I did start to question or feel as if like friendship was not as strong or was not as necessary as like familiar relationships. And I think it's bound to like happen, or like, the idea was going to, I think, fulfill itself somehow, because I think I just have such a beautiful like family. Like my mom's side of the family is just like amazing, and we're just so close to one another, and we've grown up with each other. Like I've grown up with like my cousins, and on top of that, like I think my sister and I got like closer. Like we were already close like before, but we just, I think that was just like very cemented during COVID, and like our sibling bond became like so much stronger during that time. And I just, I think it just made friendship feel a little bit like, I don't know, like I don't know what to like use, but then it just didn't feel like a strong aspect of my life, or that it should be. It felt a little bit optional for me. We went back and I still felt like slightly like awkward and whatnot, but I think things had just like changed. And I found myself hanging out with another group of girls. It was myself and like these four other girls. They were already like a friendship group, I think, before me, and then like I joined them because I just gravitated towards them. And I absolutely loved those girls. They surprised me, and I think that's one thing. That's another thing that I ended up learning, is that like sometimes just let people surprise you. Like also follow your intuition on like who you want to hang out with, and the people that you feel like you really like and that you find very interesting. Like those are the people that you should like gravitate towards. And I think I learned that with them, and they were just amazing. And like each and every single one of them are just like these powerhouses. I remember feeling that way and feeling like, oh my gosh, like these people are so cool. And then there was another girl that I was also like starting to be friends with. But then yeah, I was also friends with her, and she's also amazing. Pretty much the same sort of like, I think, opinion that I had of like these other group of girls, I had of her as well. But it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same as this like best friend connection that I had with the girl from before. And I think that's okay. Like I was very much okay with that, and I knew that it wasn't anything against them. It's just that like, just like how your relationships with different people are not going to be the same, I cannot expect or go in with an expectation that I want us to have a same connection that is as strong as that, or like no, I just could not get it from them. Not that I wanted to. I think I was willing to just embrace, I think, whatever dynamic came from these like now like new people that came into my life at that time. And I enjoyed it. I felt a lot less lonely. I felt better. I felt like people were checking in, and I just felt like a high school girl with like some friends, and with just like an interesting dynamic that played with, me and other people. And I really enjoyed my time with them and like spending time with them. Yeah. And then the next year came, like we matriculated, and I was still in touch with a couple of people from high school. But I think when they say that it's hard to, I think, maintain friendships after high school, like they're being so serious. Because after high school, I actually took a gap year before I went to uni. And in that gap year, I still made the effort to stay in touch with the group of girls that I was friends with from grade 11. And, you know, I'd still meet up with them when they were like back from uni, and like we'd go out, and it was honestly so cute and so nice. But then, you know, things started to just like fall off like naturally. And it was sad, and like in some cases it was like upsetting, but you know, it's something that I just like had to deal with at the time. And yeah, I had definitely felt like some people distancing themselves and not really communicating what is going on or why they feel like they don't want to communicate anymore. So this was like me just like experiencing stuff like that and being like, damn, like this is hard. Yeah. Next year I went into uni, and I made another group of friends, and we were just so chilled. They were so funny. I just loved how I could like literally just like go through like my stresses and like, you know, be stressed out because like I can easily stress out sometimes, and then like I felt so much relief in being in the friendship group that I was in when I was in uni. They relieved me in so many ways. Like I could just like laugh and like smile and like, you know, I just found them to be so comforting and so homey. And I think that's what happens when you go to uni, is that you gravitate towards people that actually really remind you of home. Like my sister and I actually had, I'm not too sure if her and I had this conversation or if it was somebody else that I had this conversation with, but then like that's what happened. I think I gravitated towards people that I think reminded me of something that I was like internally just like missing, and that was like my dynamic of home, because I would constantly talk about some of like the running jokes that I have with my friends, and my sister would be like, "Oh my gosh, like those are the running jokes that we sort of have as well." I think another point that I wanted to bring up was that I faced my first friendship breakup, or I think a breakup that was like quite significant for me. Now, I don't want to have to like go about going into the details of this specific, I think, breakup that occurred, because I think it is not something that is still touchy for me, but it, I don't know, I just feel like it's not something that I think is significant for me to talk about and like go about explaining like what exactly happened. All I can say is that it happened, and it happened very unexpectedly, and I was hurt. I cannot go about like really properly explaining like how it feels. I think I've processed it a lot, but not enough for me to actually like explain and articulate in actual words like how much I think going through something like that, you know, made me like really feel. I think when I think about that, I just feel a lot, and I can't really like express enough, because it was a real thing that I went through, and I just didn't expect to actually like go through any of those feelings at all whatsoever. Yeah, it happened, and I think it just made me realize, I think, how significant friendships are to me. And it just felt like a lot of those like friendship mishaps were happening around about the same time. Even the people that I was in contact with from high school, I think round about the same time, were like not really like communicating as much to me, or had just stopped communication and just like had retracted from me. And I felt a lot of like friendships of mine during this specific time, where the friendship that I had in uni was like falling apart. These other relationships from like the past were also like coming to an end, and it was just not a nice experience. And I think since then I've had this like, you know, very different, I think, emotional approach to my friendships, but I think still in my head I have a lot of optimism when it comes to friendships. I don't think I have a lot of advice to share about like how's the best way to go about friendships, because I'm still learning of how to like go about that. And I think a lot of what I think navigating relationships comes with is navigating things yourself. asking yourself the really important questions when it comes to friendships, because I think, you know, there's this thing that I tend to do and that I've noticed that other people do as well, which is like, I think, go about friendships in a sort of like whimsical sense, or just in a way that is like a little bit like not really asking yourself the really hard and important questions of like, what does this friendship mean to you? Who is this person and how are they contributing to your life? Because you're scared that you're actually gonna like get to something that is actually gonna compromise or like, you know, really, I think, threaten the friendship because it makes you feel good, and whatnot. Yeah, it's hard to do, but then like I think after the breakups happened and after I think a lot of the friendships that I had fell apart essentially, um I really had to like understand that I need to be doing a lot more of this. I think I need to really approach friendships with intentionality, you know, and like not be afraid to like ask the question, to, I think, my current and future like friendship dynamics of like, what, like, am I a good friend to you? Like, you know, can we be honest about each other, about our friendship and like what we want from it and what we actually feel about each other, and expressing a lot more of like what we mean to each other essentially is, I think, what I want to do a lot more of. I have gone through beautiful moments with friends before, and I found myself, um, with friendships because that's what happens. But I've also lost myself in friendships, and I've also, I think, have really hard, difficult times with friendships, and you know, separating from friendships and whatnot. And so I'm in a state where I'm just like accepting of the fact that I don't know what I'm necessarily doing fully in that area, but I still believe in friendship and I still am in a space where I am open to making friends and I am open to just like having community and growing connections with people. And I think with that has come, I think, me being open to also learning about it, like online, anything that I feel like I really don't know how to deal with this dynamic when it comes to friendships, or listening to like, you know, podcasts of like psychologists talk about it, like my favorite influences talk about friendships. If I see that they have a very like aspirational sort of dynamic going on between them and their friends, like that's where I feel like I can go to, because in my circle of support, which, you know, has a lot of family members, a lot of the people are younger, and I feel like a lot of the advice that I really need are from like older people, and a lot of the older people within my inner circle are very much like, you don't need friends anyway, like that doesn't matter. And it's like, I'm not like, I just don't carry that opinion. Like, I want friends. I believe that friends are very, very important for your overall well being and they can contribute to it immensely. And I would never want to, I think, look down on friendship like ever. I don't look down on it at all. I think that's why they mean so much to me. But I think with that, I have learned, from this one, family and relationship therapist. Her name is Steph Anya Anua Bile, I think. She's American, and she is on YouTube as well. She's amazing. She, you know, makes very interesting content where she reacts to, I think, Love is Blind and like all like the love dating shows that are, you know, out there, and just like other, you know, psychology books and whatnot. She's a real therapist though. And yeah, I find her content to be amazing. And in the beginning, towards the end of last year and the beginning of this year, she has also made content that has been like focused on like other aspects instead of like reacting to, I think, other like, you know, Netflix content or like whatever. She has also just gone about just talking about real day-to-day things that people are concerned about, and people really want to know how to navigate it and really need that advice from a therapist. And one of the things that she's talked about is friendships. I think she's made two main videos talking about it, like recent ones, and I've really loved her one thing that she mentioned about her just talking about like the difference between like big friendships and small friendships, and how important it is to like not always go into a friendship or a potential friendship expecting, I think, a huge level of closeness, and just like this significance, and putting a lot onto a dynamic that you have with a potential friend, and just letting, I think, friendships just build themselves, because that's the power of like human connection, is that you don't really have to like do a lot, you don't really have to force the connection, you can just really allow the connection to reveal itself, which is different from, I think, this other sort of, I think, language of like low maintenance. Fun fact, actually not so fun fact, I used to, back in high school, view myself as like a low maintenance, like chilled friend, which I think took away from, I like, the real feeling of like I really like having friends and I want to have friends, like the friends that you'd see on like your teen drama series that are just like, like those two besties. Like I wanted that so much for myself, and I think to continue to like use language like low maintenance and like make it seem as if like I'm cool and I'm chill in certain situations took away from this like need of mine to actually still have that, and because I essentially like wanted that in my life. So it's not necessarily doing that. It's about, aspiring to have friendships and being active in, growing connection, but also being able to see or to allow a connection to just like grow within itself, to actually see if your dynamic with someone can naturally go about doing that. And being positive about it, and also being positive if it's not necessarily the case between you and another person, that you are besties and that you are, gonna be friends for life. In that video, she definitely, I think, talked about like, making friends, because I think she was talking to an audience of older Gen Zers, millennials, when it comes to making friends. Because I think it's important that no matter how old you get, like, do not lose it within you to like try and make friends and build community and have connection. I think life does happen, and people end up growing up, like getting married, having kids, and then like stuff like having friends is like not as significant, but really, eh, it is. It is. And this is why I think it's so important for me, is because like I don't think that this is something that I should like let go of just because it has been difficult for me. I think that it is something that I want to continue for the rest of my life, making it a thing. Like I want to continue to, I think, really prioritize this in my life, and not, I think, lose hope or lose sight of its significance. Yeah, I've currently had to deal with, really navigating like loneliness. I think, not, I don't think I've had to navigate it. I've had to navigate it. I think the whole of last year, because my, friendship started to really fall apart and fell apart in second year, and then the whole of third year I was like not really like close to anyone, or I just didn't have the same level of closeness with people that I did before, because obviously I was really close with a group of people, and then I stopped being close with them. I navigated my way through it because, I applied the knowledge from Steph Anwabile's video of like just allowing myself to just connect with people without expecting, I think, a deep, friendship and connection with them. And I made a couple of like really, cool friends. I met like cool people, and I, reflect about it now, and I think about like how cool is it that even though I went through like such a heartbreak, that I was able to still like meet people and like have, I think, really cool conversations with people that if I didn't go through that breakup, that I wouldn't have had conversations with them probably at all, you know? But I still had to deal with the loneliness, because obviously after you go through any breakup, friendship, romantic, like things are just like not the same afterwards. Like they really weren't the same, and I had to deal with the difference of how it was for me before and how it was for me then. I witnessed the same group of people that I was friends with continue their friendship with with one another, and I was just like essentially left behind, or at least that's how it felt. But I had to like change the narrative, or I had to see the narrative like the other side of it, that even though like this is one side of what is going on, the other side is that I get to actually like, really have the connections that I've always sought out for. I ended up finding those people, and I was not lonely, or I realized that like there were some benefits of like me not being within that friendship group anymore. Not to say that they were bad people or anything. I think I needed the time to myself. I needed the time to get to know other people. I needed the time to be there for my sister, because she was also in uni for like her first year last year, and we were in the same uni, and we got to hang out a lot because we just had time on our hands. Well, I had a lot of time on my hands, but I think overall I just needed that for me and for myself. What I wanted to talk about was something that I really, received from The Artist Way, which is the book that I keep on talking about that I read last year that I think is 100% amazing. It's basically a book to help you like discover, rediscover your creativity, help you through a creative block or creative blocks, and I found it to be very helpful. But it's deep. It's deep. It's gonna make you do the real work to like really understand what it is that is blocking you. And one of the things that I think Julia Cameron really wants you to like do is to like understand what are the contributing factors to creative block, for you to be able to work on actually like ensuring that those things are like removed, like whatever's contributing to fears and doubts especially. And she dives into like friendship as well, deep, deep. And you basically have to ask yourself like, what kind of friends do you need to keep close by to like actually like help you navigate, I think, your creativity, and what kind of friends are really like projecting some of their insecurities that is essentially coming from their creative block or from their closed mindset, and whatnot. And she makes you do exercises where you ask yourself all of these different and amazing questions, not just about friendship, but there was a section on this. And one of the things that she said is that there's a difference that a lot of people don't really understand, that is very helpful for you to distinguish what kind of, like, who's your friend and who's not your friend kind of thing, where like there's a difference between somebody making you feel helpless and somebody actually like being helpful to you. And the thing is, these different things are like very hard to like distinguish from. And once you understand the difference between those two and how they exist and how they live, then that is how you can distinguish between a friend and somebody who's not a friend. The thing is, somehow, and I even recognized it within myself, sometimes I think we register helplessness. So somebody making you feel helpless is like they're making you feel like, is like them helping you when it's not. So somebody that realizes that, let's say you really want to like start making clothes and designing your own clothes, but you don't know how to sew, and a friend of yours is like, you know what, I just don't get you, like, why don't you just like hand stitch, like, it's so easy, like, I can't believe like you haven't like grasped this, like, I do this, and like it's, this person is not actually helping you. Instead of, I think, maybe making you feel as if like you are, like not, getting into things, or that you're not, or that you like, just basically like making you feel helpless, they could be helpful. They could be like, you know what, I know this like really cool like YouTube video that helped me, understand like how to like sew, or if you want to, you can come over to my house, or I can come over to yours, and I can like help you out with like, learning how to sew and stuff. And we can just, every weekend we get together and try sew until you like sew up a skirt or something, so that you can get there. there's a difference between both of those reactions. And I remember being in a friendship where a person made me feel extremely helpless, and I registered it as like they're helping me by like, basically like pointing that, I should be doing this and that I'm not doing that, like they're helping me when really they weren't. They were actually making me feel a lot more like insecure about like not getting into like my bag in a sense. It did a lot for me, and I was able to grow from that and like accept that, you know what, these are the people that I'm not going to go to for this and this and that anymore. I can't do it anymore because it's not helping me. And these people are just essentially like not really my friends. But my friends are these people, and it was the people that I've overlooked, that I took for granted. It was crazy. Like the power of the Artist's Way as just like a psychological like self-help book is just amazing, but it did so much for me, and it just completely changed my perspective on life, and it changed my perspective on friendships and even the people that were in my life. I saw people for who they really were in my life and what they were making me like feel. And I think I really wanted to like end this video off talking about a good sort of exercise that you can do to really, I think, do I'd say once a year is enough for you to do. I definitely have done this recently in my life because I felt like I just was confused about who is in my life, but also I've started a whole new like life. Like I'm now like working and stuff, and like my environment is not the same as it was before. It's really cool. It's basically if you are in a state where you don't know who is actually a part of your circle, and who is in your circle of support. Like I've mentioned that a couple of times in this video. In second year, I went to a group therapy session, which was like really cool. I love therapy so much. And I went there, and this lady, the therapist, made us do this exercise, and she told us to do it as like homework, and then come back, and then we can talk about the exercise and stuff. So it's basically like it was like a sheet of paper with like these like 3 or 4 like rings that like had like a smaller ring in the middle, and then like the other rings like outside, and then like you're supposed to like basically write down or like jot down within those rings who is in your circle of support, from the circle in the middle to, and then like the outer rings, as like a way of like tiering like the people in your life in like those like rings basically. So then she gave it to us, not explaining how it's supposed to look like. She wanted us to like really do it ourselves and then come back with it way. But it opened my eyes. I remember just doing it and feeling like, oh my word, this is interesting. Yeah, it made me realize how many people that I expected to be in the circle that were actually, they didn't even make it at all. Like, and it's an exercise, like it kind of like it like did something to me. I was like, ugh, like why can't I just like make another ring of like people? Like why, but it's a very real ass exercise. I don't want to lie. Like it will just make you realize some things about people in your life, because you're forced to really like judge where are people placed within these tiers of like support essentially. And I remember her just expressing to us that like, listen, there's only one person essentially that you have to have in the middle of that ring, and that is yourself. You can have maybe one other person that like means like dear to you, but they have to like be in like the same, like it has to be the same as like you are supposed to be in the middle. You are supposed to be your number one person, your number one center of like support, and then like from there everybody else in your life. um it's a very interesting exercise, but it gives you a lot of perspective about like what's going on when it comes to your circle of support. And a huge part of, I think, what needs to be worked on if you are in therapy and you are basically coming in as someone who is struggling with actually having, people that are, within your support circle, and you feel like you don't really have a lot of people within your circles, that you're trying to work with your therapist to, like, figure ways in which you can, really get to a point where you have a good enough, healthy enough, full enough circle of people that are within, that make up your circle. Trying to get, I think, enough, times of, like, people time, community time and whatnot, so that, because, like, we're talking about friendship here, and we really are talking about this, aspects of life that is a huge contributor to our well-being. I'm saying it again, I think I've said it before, but it contributes to our well-being, like, so much. And I think it's very important and essential. The sun is going away. It's very important and essential for us to, like, understand that this is not a part that we need to neglect. And I feel like if you're my age, if you're younger, if you're older or whatnot, please don't give up on friendship. I don't want to give up on friendship, and I just, like, it's harder now being a Gen Zer in 2026, where there's not enough third spaces. There's, social media, which is like this fake source and means of communication. Not fully, not entirely, but it definitely does, I think, pose that, like, a sense of connection that is not really real. Um, yeah, it's difficult, it's hard, but I'm still optimistic about it. That's where I am with friendships. And I would hate for anybody to just forgive, like give up on it completely, because no, I'm not doing it. I'm not. I enjoyed this video. It was tough having to navigate the cameras and phones and space, but I did it. I made it. Um, yeah, I hope you enjoy listening, and yeah, thank you to the person who gave me this idea. Bye.